Good morning. It's Liverpool Transfer Daily here on the Blood Red channel. I'm Guy Clarke, and alongside me, Liverpool.com's James Martin. Today, we're discussing the Reds transfer policy following the latest extract from Pep Lijnders' forthcoming book, Intensity Inside Liverpool, Our Identity. Plus, we'll have a look at the Reds' rivals as two seemingly do battle over Barcelona's Frenkie De Jong. Do get involved in the chat box. Leave your comments and questions, and we'll get to them as we can through the course of the show. But James, first up, let's discuss the Reds transfer policy. And as I say, Pep Lijnders, in the latest extract that's being serialised across the Liverpool Echo website, has spoken all about the club's transfer policy and basically explained the way in which Liverpool begin to look to work now is leave room for the academy stars such as Harvey Elliott, Curtis Jones, even youngsters who are brought in like Fabio Carvalho and Bobby Clarke to flourish and develop. And aside from that, bring in what he describes game changers, the likes of Luis Diaz, and I suppose Darwin Núñez would fall into that category.
Yeah, I think that's some of the most interesting parts of the quotes that have come out. Is it's a real statement in terms of how Pep Lijnders and the rest of the staff view Darwin Núñez, in the sense that, yeah, as you say, he doesn't fall into the academy bracket, so that means he must be a game changer. I suppose we probably could have guessed that from the potentially record-breaking fee, but it's a restatement of the faith the club have in him and the kind of the transformative effect they expect him to have. And I mean, it's a big statement to make in this Liverpool team to call anyone a game changer, because it's one of the best teams in the world. There's precious few players who can come in and change the game. But I suppose we saw in the second half of last season that it's not impossible. Lijnders name checked Luis Diaz, didn't he, as a game changer, and that was certainly evident. You wouldn't have necessarily said Liverpool had that far upwards to go, but he certainly did bring them up a level and was integral in the cup pushes and in the ultimate attempt at the quadruple. So yeah, I think it's a really good policy, and I think it's interesting to hear that it's been talked about among the coaches. You never quite know how much is FSG, how much is the coaching staff, but to hear that kind of deliberate strategy from the coaches in terms of, we'll focus on academy, we'll focus on game changers, and the rest can be making sure there's that pathway, is it's really encouraging, because it just is further proof how every part of the club is kind of working in tandem, that there are recruitment specialists, but they're not just ignoring the coaching staff. The coaching staff have a clear say in the direction of it. And yeah, between the two sort of sides of the club, there's a very clear future-focused policy, which, it doesn't neglect the here and now.
Yeah, most definitely. Even those academy players who are brought in, I suppose, within their own right, are kind of dubbed and labelled game changers within that. Bobby Clarke and Cade Gordon, I know, for two kind of dubbed as best in England at their age bracket when Liverpool signed them. Such was the excitement of bringing them to the club. But it kind of also feeds into, I suppose, the way in which FSG run the club, the wage structure, that actually you allow the top end players to take a top wage, but then you bring in younger players who probably are paid less, but they have that hunger to then drive up to reach that. And there is maybe a bit of a difference between the two groups, but equally it sort of gives that hunger to the younger players to move up and continue to push themselves without some, I suppose, bit part players, or in previous squads, you might say some dead wood players who are just there clogging things up, who, when it comes round to Carabao Cup games, I mean, we saw through the first part of last season the impact Tyler Morton, for one, could have, and the role in which he played in getting some early minutes in the Carabao Cup and eventually even playing in the Champions League in the San Siro.
Yeah, I mean, I think even the game changes, there's a kind of caution on the wages. You get the occasional exception. So you'd look at Thiago, who came in as instantly matching the top earner. But I mean, we mentioned Darwin Núñez earlier. He's come in on what's sort of believed to be about £140,000 a week. I mean, it's not bad money, obviously, but in terms of like comparing it to other signings of a similar transfer fee, you're looking at what is a relatively modest wage. So even among those game-changing signings, there's very much a belief that there's a need to have that progression pathway that you mentioned. No one should come in and think that that they've got nothing to work for. They've made it already. So I suppose both sets of players, the game changers and the academy players, have that kind of incentive to work upwards. And I suppose Mohamed Salah is the ultimate vindication of that model, in the sense that, after 5 years of such exemplary service, he has now got to the point where FSG have said, okay, we'll break our wage structure, we'll give you what you want and give you that kind of massive headline salary. And that's something which, that the new signings of all categories, if you like, can look towards and say, well, if I can emulate what he's done, if I can play really well for this club for an extended period of time, then there is no ceiling on what I can earn here and what I can achieve here.
Yeah, most definitely. Right, let's move on from Liverpool before I do so. Intensity inside Liverpool FC. Pep Lijnders' book is available from the 4th of August. We'll put a link in the description for anybody who does want to get on the pre-order for that. I, for one, am very intrigued to see what else is to come in that book. Serialisation across the Liverpool Echo website. Plenty across there. But let's get into some of the Reds' rivals and what they're up to, James. And Frenkie De Jong, I mean, all summer long, he seems to have been linked with a move to Manchester United, but reports in Spain today suggesting that if he's to leave Barcelona, the club he wants to join is Chelsea, but they're maybe not so willing to come up to the price tag that Manchester United have set.
Yeah, it's a mess, isn't it? It's funny though. Yeah, it's an interesting one. The saga's been kind of dragging on for goodness knows how long already. But you can certainly understand Frenkie De Jong not wanting to go to Manchester United. It's not a particularly appealing destination at present. And, when he joined Barcelona, I know most players say, this is my dream club, wherever they're turning up at. The amount of players who dreamed of playing for Manchester City when they were, a very much a non-entity is surprising, to say the least. So maybe you have to take it with a pinch of salt, but it does seem that he genuinely did have this dream of playing for Barcelona, which he doesn't want to give up too easily. And he certainly doesn't want to give up for a club that's not in the Champions League. And I think that's absolutely fair enough. And I mean, you also look at the off-field stuff, you look at how things are being run, all of this stuff with Cristiano Ronaldo going on in the background. It doesn't scream of a club that, is going to be a delight to join and is going to be the best place for your progression. Obviously, Barcelona doesn't necessarily scream that at the moment either, with some of their management off the field. But yeah, it's, we're maybe into an era where player power is bigger than it used to be. And I don't blame Frenkie De Jong for saying that, look, if you're going to force me out, it's going to be on my terms too. And I'm not going to go to a club which doesn't suit me. So I don't know why he's necessarily picked out Chelsea, given that, we haven't actually heard of that much interest on Chelsea's side. And Chelsea aren't necessarily any more appealing of a destination than any other host of Champions League clubs, who I'm sure De Jong would be happy enough at. But yeah, in terms of the rejecting United side of things, if that's true, then it's fair enough.
Is De Jong a game changer? Should Liverpool consider a hijacking? I mean, we've seen what they've done, or what they did in January with Tottenham's interest in Luis Diaz, gazumped them and came and took the player. But I mean, there's been a lot of talk all summer long that Liverpool would be interested in a midfield, or Liverpool should go for a midfield player. They haven't done so far. Of course, Oxlade-Chamberlain and Keita still haven't signed new contracts, and into the last year there does seem to be quite an age gap between kind of your likes of your Milner, Henderson and Thiago to then the younger spectrum of the midfield. Would Frenkie De Jong not be a bridge between that, and equally what we were saying before about the transfer policy? Would he not be the kind of player actually of the repute and reputation actually who would be worth going for?
It's an interesting question. I suppose the other thing you have to bear in mind in terms of what Lijnders was saying is that while he mentioned game changers, he said what we don't do is sign stopgaps. So you have to ask the question, if Bellingham is on the cards for 2023, is that why there'd be no consideration of a move for someone like a De Jong? In terms of reputation, he's in that kind of category, I suppose, but reputation alone doesn't make you a game changer. And I think the problem Liverpool would have, well, one of a few problems is, he's very good, but no one seems to have quite found his best position. He's played as a 6, he's played as an 8, he's played as a 10. There's talk that Xavi's going to try him at centre-back moving forward, where he's played briefly before for Ajax. So he's a very good player, he's a very technical player, but, Liverpool have a lot of those kind of technically very strong players who kind of fit in all around the midfield. And I think if there was someone who was going to be a game changer, it would be someone who's kind of got a clear, defined role. This is where he comes in and improves the team. And I think while De Jong is a very good player, I don't think there's any obvious point of the team where he comes in and instantly improves it.
Would he not upgrade kind of the midfield generally? I'm just playing devil's advocate here with it. I mean, you say there Bellingham, obviously the player to look at for 2023, but there's no kind of definitive thing to say that that would definitely happen. Borussia Dortmund are talking of wanting over £100 million for a player who has been there, seen it, and done it to an extent. He's played for two giant clubs in Ajax and Barcelona. He's reached the Champions League semi-final with Ajax as well. It'd be far cheaper, the initial outlay would suggest, to what Bellingham would be. I know he isn't homegrown, that a box that Bellingham definitely does tick that Liverpool would be interested in. But to me, I'm surprised this summer, albeit De Jong quite clearly would like to stay at Barcelona if he could, that there's not been more interest other than Manchester United.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Interestingly, with Bellingham, just quickly, I don't think he will qualify as homegrown unless he makes a move to an English club this summer, because you have to have trained for 3 years in England by your 21st birthday. I think he had 2 at Birmingham before he moved abroad. So Liverpool may not even get that benefit if they do wait until 2023 as expected. But that's kind of a side point. And you're right to say that Liverpool can't put all of their eggs in the Bellingham basket. There's certainly no guarantees that we'll be able to land him next summer. But if we sign a sort of premium midfielder like De Jong now, that kind of rules out any shot at Bellingham, just purely because there'll be no space for him in the team. And FSG won't be able to justify an outlay of, like you say, 100 million being mentioned if they've already spent, 60, 70 odd million on a De Jong the previous year. So I don't think they're going to want to make a signing that they're happy with, but not their priority signing, just because that would rule out Bellingham. So I think, with Klopp happy with the midfield options he has for one more season, I think the path that they're taking, and I think it is the most sensible path, is to wait for a year, try for Bellingham, and then if it becomes clear that that's not going to work out, then at that point you look at who's available. Is De Jong still available? If he is, then maybe he comes back onto the radar. But there's a lot of good midfielders out there. There's a lot of alternatives to Bellingham that could be considered, and I think 2023 is the year to really be thinking about that.
Yeah, most definitely. Right, that wraps us up for today's Liverpool Transfer Daily. Of course, the Reds are in action later on today. We'll have you covered across the Blood Red channel, across Liverpool.com, and plenty more to come throughout the course of the day. Red Bull Salzburg, the opposition, before, of course, heading towards the weekend, the Community Shield with Manchester City before Strasbourg at Anfield. But from myself, Guy Clarke, and James Martin, thanks for joining us this morning here on Blood Red. It's bye for now.